Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 99 of A Fern Between Us.
We are two of the four owners of Vivoc Winery. I'm Jesse.
I'm Michelle, and this is our second to last episode.
What?
So, last episode we did talk to you about that we are ending A Fern Between Us. Next week is going to be the 100th episode, and we are going to invite you to tell us what were your favorite episodes. Let's have a little look back, celebrate the show, and then we're going to take some time off. We're going to reinvent what we do with our video segment for Vivoc Winery and come back with something fun and new, and this has run its course. So, second to last, people. So we decided to go out with a bang.
Right?
Literally. I might shoot myself.
If I don't remember how many times orange wine has come up in the past here over the history of this show, but regardless, for sure, I have trashed it every time, for sure, whenever it came up. And now we're gonna subject ourselves. You remember the face that Michelle made at the what was it?
The whiskey or the
mezcal.
That was mezcal.
The mezcal tasting.
Mm-hmm,
you may see that off of me if any of my past orange wine experiences are any indication. But this one's supposed to be good, right?
It is. Okay, so we are going to talk about natural wines and orange wines. They are super trendy right now. So there's a lot of nebulous information out there, and we'll explain why in a second. But I, in my many iterations of international wine competitions, have gotten to be lucky enough to taste.
Had the pleasure.
Many different orange wines. When you have your judge's cap on, you put all of your personal likes and dislikes aside. You know what you're looking for, and you try to find that in the glass and a well-made version of whatever it is. Whether or not you would have a glass of it yourself,
right,
it does not matter. And there was a table that in Texas had to judge wine that was peanut butter and jelly, and it was peanut butter and strawberry wine that smelled just like and tasted just like
peanut butter and jelly with strawberry
jam.
And
jelly, and that's not what necessarily a lot of us would want, but. Hell, they did a great job. So,
and it probably sells like crazy because the market is out there. The novelty of it. We've got our neighbors with Black Beauty who actually put a chocolate extract in their red wine. Mm-hmm. That's and it's technically a flavored wine. Tons of people love it, and it tastes. Usually tastes good, really good.
They make
I don't want a glass, but it's
full of this wine, and right. They are trying to make it legitimately. And
so there are things that are out of the box. This is not necessarily out of the box. This is using just grapes, just
this is technique.
Normal fermentation styles. They're just treating a white wine like a red wine. They're leaving the skins while they ferment, in contact with the juice as it ferments, and making basically a red wine out of white grapes.
Yeah.
And I have
I
haven't tasted this one yet. This actually looks amazing. I'm actually kind of excited.
It's light. This is from.
I want to get through this so I can actually start tasting.
I know this is from Friuli. It's a Pinot Grigio. Orange wine can be made from any white wine grape. It is about leaving it on the skins for that contact. One of my favorite things that I have heard is that the part of the definition of an orange wine is that you're looking for characteristics that are normally not likable. That's what you're looking for in a wine? Like, why are we doing this to ourselves, people? But it's become very, very trendy. People want to, get excited about something new. One thing is, it is turning on young drinkers to ask more questions about the wine that they're consuming. Yeah. And so that gets back to the natural wine topic, but let's taste this.
Can we taste this?
Yes,
yeah, let's taste this, and then we can talk about all kinds of stuff. Okay. Looks beautiful.
Nice color.
Glowing. Not bad on the nose.
Right? There's no VA. There's no...
not problematic at all. Almost lovely.
Right? Yo.
This is my first... let me drink this throughout the show, but this is the first time I've kind of liked an orange wine, even slightly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is gorgeous. These guys are amazing. I always said...
Hold it up for the camera.
I always said, maybe that's centered, maybe that's visible. I don't know.
And I picked that up at Total Wine.
Okay.
$20.
What?
You do want to spend a little bit more maybe than, I don't know what's comfortable for you, but $20 is a good price range if you want a solid quality wine, especially if you're trying something new for the first time.
Oh yeah, good point on something new. I always said, everyone says, "Hey, you're gonna do an orange wine." I was like, well, as soon as I have an orange wine that I even slightly like, then maybe I'll consider it. Here we go. Am I gonna consider it? I don't know.
Light and delicate, so a lot of the orange wine enthusiasts like it far funkier. That is a word that is used a lot with orange wine, is that they want that funk. VA, volatile acidity, is a real problem with these wines. So I have a heightened issue with it. You do too. So it becomes extremely unpleasant at very low levels for our aesthetics. And so, if you're getting fingernail polish remover and wood varnish, and those are often used in the description. I mean,
so why?
What?
Do you have any idea why a white wine fermented on the skins would show more VA than a red wine fermented on the skins? Why would that be? Do you have any idea about it?
Well, you are the winemaker, but what I have understood is that volatile acidity can also cling to the skins. Mm-hmm. So with a white wine, if you get the juice away from those skins right away, then there's less opportunity for it to contract it from just the environmental kind of thing.
So why aren't red wines showing more VA?
Well, how many fucking red wines do you have that have horrible VA?
No, that happens all the time, but and that is the hardest thing to combat.
Right.
But red wines seem just as likely, or maybe even a little less likely to have VA than white wines. Or am I wrong?
Don't you think it's perception? Because there is so much more going on in a red wine that you can have a higher level of VA.
And mask it.
Yeah, it's masked by the fuller fruit, the heavier tannin, all of these things that, I mean, these are light, and any little thing shows.
Yeah. And in orange wine, and traditionally anyway, like this is an exception, but is a little more full-bodied, but not all the way over to red. Therefore, maybe
and usually oxidized.
And oxidized. It's usually oxidized.
Yeah, bruised apple is another thing that people look for in an orange wine. So it's really interesting.
I mean, that's easy to make without calling it orange. You could just have a white wine that, like, all white wines are so oxidized, like, so instantaneously already.
I know. So, I mean, it begs the question, why not? I mean, you work so hard to have a beautiful, clean, fresh, clear white. Why not just fuck off and make a crap wine and then be like, hey, look, it's orange wine.
Potty mouth Padberg over here.
Sorry. Wow, I don't know what happened.
2 F-bombs already in the first 9 minutes.
Okay, so part of it's connected a little bit to the natural wine movement. Mm-hmm. So in part, it's that thousands and thousands of years ago, people were making orange wines, mostly because they also didn't know what they were doing, but also they put white wines in amphora and buried them, and the skin contact, which does create tannin in the wine, allowed it to age better, right? It's tannin is an important concept if you're trying to age a wine, and so that was necessary, but isn't necessary now. So this is the question. Right. Then with natural, which is just this ambiguous word, it doesn't legally mean anything.
Right. Don't think of it as like these are organic or somehow good for you compared to regular wines. Natural wines have nothing to do with nature or anything else. I mean, the same amount as other wines do.
Yeah.
But those ones tend to be, think of like your hazy beer or something like that. They still have like active bacterial cultures going on in the bottled wine. And the only reason, I mean, I don't know why they're not pushing the cork out and like actually, because most things create pressure because there's a reaction going on.
Right? It's a living thing.
They don't, I mean, if they went into the bottle drinkable, like they don't last more than 6 months, like ever. With natural wines, like just open it and drink it like sooner the better because it's going bad as you speak.
The only thing is...
I'm going to have more of this. This is good.
Whoa! This is huge. Okay, so
I'm getting a little skeptical a little bit. Like, I feel like this is like Pinot Gris.
With just a little...
maybe 1 or 2% of like Sangiovese or some kind of like red grape just to give it a little orangish color. Like, is this real? Like, this is too clean. I've never even come close to an orange wine like this.
That's interesting.
Which would make it a blush, by the way, not a rosé.
Right? Which, I mean, it is... So, rosé wines are often into the orange spectrum. And that is completely correct. So, he's not... yeah, that could be. But real quick, I do want to clarify. So natural wines, natural is used a lot in European countries, and they don't mean the same thing that we're talking about. Gosh,
Gloria.
Got a little friendly.
You're playing pokey with Gloria.
It is, in the 19th century or something, there was a poet that was like, we got to get back to the natural way of blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, if
you don't know the name of the poet?
I know that he was from Georgia, the country, not the
Soviet
state.
Georgia.
And the idea was really supported because a lot of things had been happening where they were moving more and more into developing pesticides and synthetics and things like that. So it was the movement to stop using those kind of things, to lower the amount of sulfites that you were adding.
Rewilding.
Yeah, but it grew into a frenzied kind of thing. So you can still buy a natural wine in Europe in a lot of countries, and that just means it's perhaps it's organically farmed. It's lower in sulfites. They might be using a native yeast. All these buzzwords, but in truth, it's the way Jesse and Chris make their wine. It is a clean, well-made, happy fermentation. It doesn't have VA. It doesn't have problems. It's a clean, clear wine that didn't have additives or things.
Right.
But sulfites are naturally occurring.
And in defense of almost all winemakers, besides the big guys with big money, that's just the way wine is made. Like the big guys, the guys that like the 100 brands that are on every grocery store shelf, and it's always the same brands wherever you go. Those guys are using manipulative techniques
because they're making billions of gallons,
right? And they can afford the $250,000 tool to ultra filter this or that, or to the heat exchangers they're able to use techniques that little guys just can't afford to start even think about using, and nor would we want to. But at the same time, like it somehow, for some reason, becomes necessary when you get big enough. And I don't know why exactly, but they need continuity, and they need to be sure if you're going to put, $20 million worth of product out into the universe, you have to make sure for sure that it is bomb proof, nothing's going wrong. Us little guys who maybe make 100 cases of a lot,
Yeah.
If it goes, we pull it, and it's does that financially hurt? Yeah, a little bit, but it's not a make it or break it kind of thing. If the big guys have 6 products, we have 20 products. So like if 1/20th of it goes bad this year, we'll survive.
We figure out what to do with it.
Exactly.
Getting a little into distilling.
Right.
And so there is a serious movement in the United States specifically. You are seeing it more in New World places where somebody I was talking to, he is an importer, and he had the best description of it. He said, I would like my kombucha to be in a kombucha bottle rather than a wine bottle. And I think that's so true.
That's nice.
That is kind of what you're looking at when you buy a natural wine from a small producer in the United States. It's really working to have something that, as they say in this niche little segment, that they don't want to get involved. The grape juice should turn into wine on its own. You have no idea how many problems that creates. No, you don't want to get sick from the wine either. That's
the number one problem with a natural fermentation, quote natural fermentation. There's no legal definition of natural, but if you're using not putting in a winemaking yeast, say, it's called a natural fermentation by most people. There are yeasts everywhere floating around. If you leave your bottle of orange juice out on the countertop, it'll start fermenting. In a few days, it'll start being a little fizzy, and that's because yeasts have gotten in there and they're fermenting the juices, right? So, but a wine gets up to 14% alcohol, or 12%, or whatever it is, right? Most natural yeasts die off around 5 or 6. So you'll have a partial fermentation, then it'll be part alcohol, part sweet, and then the other bacteria that are in the air as well, volatile, that make VA, they will start turning that partially alcoholic whatever into vinegar, and it just goes bad and bad and bad. Most people get away using a natural fermentation if they've been spreading commercially bought wine yeasts, all the leaves from that. Like every time you press off a red fermentation, you put it out in the vineyard. Then your natural yeasts are wine yeasts, and that's why they ferment all the way to dry, fairly problem-free in theory. But you don't know which strain, you don't know what it's doing. Like, are you using a yeast that would be better suited to some white versus, and now you're trying to ferment a red, and that like the dominant yeast is a white yeast, and like maybe it turns out magical, and sometimes it does, and then sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know. So it is a crapshoot. It's a gamble that we already gamble for a living. We're farmers, and like, why do we need to also gamble with our living?
Yeasts are natural.
Yeasts
Sulfites are natural. That's part of the natural process of wine grapes. Stop looking for reinventing the wheel. I swear, it's going too far. And maybe, like things often do, they have to sweep real far to the opposite side so that it could come back. And we can just appreciate that this movement has taken people to asking questions and really being more on top of an exchange when they go to a winery, or looking things up and caring about what they're drinking, and I'm all for that. So, and the more I drink this, I'm like, there's not very many characteristics of a truly orange wine.
Right.
Which, by the way, number one question about orange wines is if it's oranges, and it's not. So just keep that in mind.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
you're very much like, I get a lot of Pinot Grigio out of this that normally would not be so bright. And
it tastes like a pretty clean Pinot Grigio. Not the best I've ever had, but if this is actually just made from Pinot Grigio grapes, I am so highly impressed. But it tastes like a clean Pinot Grigio with like a couple drops of a clean red, maybe to give it the color. Or almost.
Maybe
it's a little more tannic. It's a little more tannic.
It does have a touch of tannin, and so I was thinking it was maybe pressed off like
a day into it, rather 12 hours, 24 hours.
Yeah, rather than usually it's many days or even months where it sits on those skins.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting.
This is interesting. If this is a possible outcome of orange wines, I'm all for it.
Well, I've tasted dozens.
The fact that this is
and
Italian,
none of them have tasted like this.
Right? The fact that this is Italian and you were able to pick it up in a store in New Mexico means it's a big ass company, meaning that most big companies aren't producing orange wines, and
well, it's not a giant company. I mean,
right, exactly. It's not giant.
It's just
but it's
maybe
big
bigger
enough.
than.
It's big enough. It's 500,000 or 250,000 cases or something like that. It's a big one.
I don't know about that.
100,000.
No.
Yeah,
we get small producers.
From Italy?
Yeah.
I've never heard of them, so maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. I don't know, but it just seems like it seems like the biggest company I've seen selling an orange wine. Is that right?
No.
No, there's other big ones.
Yeah, but
and are they hazy?
Hazy?
Hazy is almost always natural.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they tend to be clear. But I've never tasted one like this. And
that's interesting. If this is how it could turn out, maybe Pinot Grigio is the grape. Maybe there's one grape that's great for it.
Which is the grape that they
possible.
use in Friuli, and maybe I mean obviously.
Yeah.
The Italians. Probably not.
They do everything pretty well.
Yeah.
They produce things that taste good. I've noticed.
So good. All right. So there's our synopsis. You can disagree, agree. You can send us, comments or
love mail, hate mail, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. That's just what we find. And if you're loving it,
these are
then
totally,
love it.
totally
Keep
just
loving
opinions.
what you love.
That's
and
right.
Drink what
That's
you
right.
drink. But
exactly.
if you're looking to get into a new venture and you keep hearing these like tantalizing things about natural wines and orange wines, maybe
try it. Decide for yourself. Keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Know that you may hate it. And that's also being an open-minded about
that's
it.
That's okay.
I'm trying to be open-minded every time I taste it. And,
every time.
And
but the more you
sometimes
taste things, it's harder.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You get more stuck in your rut. All right, go ahead.
Yep. Okay.
Questions?
Yes, we have questions. So, oddly, the first question, well, not oddly, are your wines natural? So we did kind of already touch on that a little bit. It's...
If natural meant something, I would say yes.
Yeah, because you're organically farming your low sulfite additions. Again, sulfites are naturally occurring in the grapes during the fermentation. This is not news, people. And then you're not trying to doctor it, and you're not trying to make it something it's not. And you do introduce a yeast in order to be a healthy.
Exactly.
Think of it that way. It's a healthy wine then.
Exactly. It's like, think of it as lots of these things that we're doing is like probiotics for us or whatever, right? It's just introducing things that we know are good for us and will help us be better. We do that for the wine. But manipulation is where it gets weird, and we're really trying not to. We don't overly filter. We don't... The parameters we use, we keep the fermentation at certain temperatures.
Oh yes, temperature control. That's really important.
Within a range, we add a certain yeast strains that should do well for the grapes and the wine that we're looking to have it turn into. In the reds, we add a malolactic bacteria rather than not knowing if it's, if you get if there's lots of bacterias that will change malic acid into lactic acid, but only partially, once again, just like the yeast. And so like we want it to either be completely malolactic fermentation or not malolactic.
The creaminess, it adds a mouthfeel, adds a texture.
It's a mouthfeel thing, and it adds a bunch of like subtle things under the surface that like most people can't tell at all, but it's why you like a wine more or less sometimes. And we do a light filtration before bottling. And like those are kind of like the 4 manipulations that we do, but those aren't manipulations. Those are just kind of providing bumpers, a guideline for it to not like just go off the rails,
right?
and
Like,
become
are
a gutter
you,
ball.
are you gonna have a child and then just let it raise yourself? I don't know.
Right?
If you can't change your own diaper, I guess we won't do diaper. It's just so silly to me.
It's a little bit like that. Like you try to provide some structure while letting them be themselves, and that is exactly how that's a good analogy, because that's all we're trying to do with our wines is try to let them be what they want to be without just throwing them to the wolves.
Yeah. So that's the answer for that. Tricky. Okay. Next question is, what is the next wine region you guys will visit to explore grapes to plant in Dixon?
Ooh. You mentioned Georgia just now. I would love to visit Georgia. I'm not going to do it now because they're, that's about as Soviet as you can get in a non-Soviet country.
Yes.
And I'm not down with danger travel, but well,
I just recently
any of those areas, any of the old Soviet bloc, behind the curtain wine growing regions are prime for us. Plus any of the Alps stuff, so Switzerland and of course Austria.
Yeah, which
and
we
Germany
explored a little bit, but a friend of mine, she was inviting people to come to Ukraine, which is where she's from, to do wine tasting master classes, a whole event, having producers come to the event so you could taste lots and lots of Ukrainian wines. I was lucky enough to do a small tasting when I was in Aosta, Italy with her. I judged with her. And one of the things was that they said, we will keep you safe. There is a full bunker underneath for everybody, fully supplied. Well, whoa, okay, I really wanted to go. I really wanted to go to this. I think it would be amazing. The wines I tasted
I almost thought
phenomenal.
she should have, but once again, I'd said I'm not for danger travel, so I don't know. Maybe I'm lying about both.
Danger travel. You're all for danger travel. But, I think that's a really interesting thing, just talking about when do you go to a place or not. And we spent a few months in Colombia a number of years ago, and people were panicked that we were taking our child and spending time there. It was glorious. The people were amazing. It was very safe. It's so much more than what we see. Anyway, and there's been talk about going back to Chile.
Argentina. Argentina has high altitude. We forgot to talk about that.
Yes.
So anyway, there's a potential trip in the horizon as well to Chile. We'll see if that materializes. But
we have some calls to make, but that could be happening sooner rather than later.
And I don't know. I think Argentina's more where we would look for new varietals for us potentially to grow. Chile really doesn't grow at extreme climes. Really, their Central Valley is very temperate. Very it's perfect for wine grapes where they're growing it. But in Argentina, they grow. Higher than us. Like, it's the only place in the world where they actually grow higher altitude than us. And a few
really
places,
successfully.
Really successfully, exactly. But lots of areas. I don't know. We'll see.
We never thought we were going to encounter wine in Bali, and we did. So we kind of find ways to, no matter where we go, find the wine.
Right.
And then it's always a journey and interesting.
India and China have some cool climate
has some
growing.
Crazy cool. Oh, and I want to go to Japan.
And
really
Japan
bad.
has some really weird wine grapes.
Oh,
really
so
weird wine grapes.
I've used one of their reds in one of my American Wine Society National Conference classes. It's so ethereal and delicate and lovely. It's just
that's as much
amazing.
the winemaking as the grapes they're growing, though, too.
Yes. But it's
they put little hats
cool.
over every grape cluster. It's amazing. Of course, the Japanese.
I want to go so bad. Everything's
we're gonna
details.
There'll be Michelle's gonna get invited into a competition one of these days, and I'm really hoping that we do that then.
And then we can, yeah, we'll see. Then last question for today is, what wine do you love that you make, and which wine do you wish you could stop making?
That second part's rough. The wines
Thank you for
love.
saying that, because I hate when you're like brutally like, well, I'm like, no, you like all your wines. What are you talking about?
The wines I love, I've talked about a million times on this whatever this is. There's been
100 of them.
The show of Gloria between us, or whatever.
This is 100 episodes about almost.
Right.
So nobody remembers what the hell you've said.
Okay.
They're probably drinking along with us.
I'm down with a lot of the obscure ones, like traditionally Refosco, although last couple of years I'm a little ho-hum on it, right? I don't know, we'll see. Aglianico I traditionally love. The Montepulciano originally I didn't like as much, and now I'm loving. Rosé, I just want to make rosés.
Oh man, and we just we're planting Zweigelds, and that makes a phenomenal rosé. So I expect at least 3 rosés on our list.
And if I'm totally honest, I think I'm not excited about making whites. Sometimes they're glorious, sometimes they're rough. I want to just make rosés and reds
for our Chardonnay.
I know, but if I'm really honest, I want to make rosés and reds.
That's very honest.
Yep.
All right.
I've been trying, and they're so hit and miss, and whites are just so difficult to make, and I don't understand what I'm doing wrong all the time, and I feel like I'm missing the mark a bunch, like way too often.
That's not true. And let's be clear for all of you watching, the hit and miss, the miss is not like a problem. Like, they're delicious. He has
they're just
very,
not
very
glorious.
high standards. So he wants a Gloria. God, back off. She just keeps reaching for me. He wants this like amazing, excellent. This level that's very difficult to reach. And so, for example, our Gruner was picked a little early. We needed to. It wasn't ripe enough. So, in extreme analysis, it doesn't show the varietal correctness. That's where I come into play, right? Like, Jesse's like, what do you think? And I'm like, do you want the Vivac winery person, your wife person, or the judge person? And he's like, tell me
the judge.
Yeah.
I want to know.
And I'm like, we're not going to take it to competition because it doesn't show the varietal correctness that it really needs. Now, is it a lovely white to just sip on and enjoy? Absolutely.
It's amazing, and it's like pure and simple and clean and refreshing. It
just doesn't say
it lacks the
Gruner.
It lacks the negative things that I've seen from our Gruner sometimes.
Yes, it can get skunky.
It can get a little skunky when it's overripe, or when I mess up in the winery. I don't know what, but it's so yeah. So like, I don't know. It's all these things that it just blows my mind.
Well, especially because there are
try to
times,
harness a white wine.
There's times when he and Chris, they work really hard. They work together. They do all the parts, winemaking and viticulture together. And there are times when they hit that operatic note, right? Where, like our Chardonnay right now.
Our current Chardonnay is amazing.
Oh, wow. And it's so perfect. That we've had that with the Gruner, we've had that with the Riesling, and when it doesn't hit that level, there's disappointment.
Okay. Here's what it is. All right, so every wine goes through ebbs and flows of how good is it? Is it good, or is it really good, or is it excellent? Or impeccable. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Like, and those are the 3 I'm trying for. If it's less than that, I'm pissed. I'm throwing it out. I'm uncorking it.
Yes. 100%.
So I'm okay with good, but I'm disappointed. And then those top 2, some years are going to be excellent, some years are not, right? And that's just the way I kind of try to break it down. Anyway,
We're also
It's
doing
more-
heroic viticulture. It's
Well-
impossible to have it totally perfect every year.
And the thing is, like, maybe in the red wines, maybe I'm like, we've got 12 to 15 red wines. So 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them are excellent, maybe. And then 10 of them are less than that, right? And maybe some of those are even only good, or, you know, pushing into less than good, if I'm honest sometimes. And I'm just like, damn it, you know, with those ones, but it doesn't like weigh on me. We only have 3 or 4 whites that we ever do. So like,
The pressure's
if
on.
one's good, one's medium, and one's like not hitting the mark, I'm like, damn, you know, like, because it seems like there's a problem in the white wine sector again, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
Maybe
totally
so.
get that.
Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's a third on all of them, and I just am putting more pressure on the whites because there's only a couple.
I do think that you should give it a couple of years. This is funny. We have not had this conversation. Can
I've
you
never
tell?
said this to Michelle that
Yeah.
I want to nix whites from the list.
And so now you guys get to be a part of our very first conversation. Welcome to VBach Winery. Here's the thing: is that we are implementing some new equipment, and I think being able to harvest quickly, efficiently, when it's still really cool, and be able to then process them if we can figure out how to eliminate oxygen contact with the new press, which has been tricky to learn, then I think you're going to have extremely glorious whites. And so I just don't think you should nix it yet. just yet. Maybe like a couple more vintages at least.
I almost mentioned this to Chris the other day too, and he was like, huh?
You crazy.
If Jesse starts talking about something, everyone's like, oh, fuck. Oh, no, that's the third F-bomb. Oh, Jesse, come on.
Yeah, he has some rogue ideas sometimes. We have to talk him off a cliff. But, yeah, we've had, the other thing is that each vintage gets subtly better. And the more, I mean, we're just like killing it. At these
Not as quickly
competitions.
as my palate wants it to, though.
Yeah, but we've got gold after gold after gold after gold. I mean, it's really sensational. Like, we don't send a wine in and not have it metal really well.
Right? Yeah, yeah, you're right. All right.
So-
All right. I'll stop.
Calm down. All right, so let's wrap it up. It's gotten a little long. Hopefully you learned a lot. Feel confident to maybe explore some things, or feel confident in saying no thank you at your next tasting or party where your friends want to serve you something really
Or at
dank and
least,
gross.
or at least you can be confident in ordering this as an orange wine if you had to order an orange wine.
Yeah, which more and more I'm like, it's not a orange wine. I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure it is. I'm sure they're on the up and up, and this is just gloriously clean and unpungent. All right, so next week is our final episode. So do a little quick review of our YouTube video. Denali's done a fabulous job uploading all of our episodes to the YouTube channel and making sure everything's titled and looks good. So scan through those. Rewatch any that look fun, or, just kind of peruse, see if any memories come back. Let us know what your favorites were, what your favorite questions were, anything you want to say. It's the final episode. So let's have a good time. Let's party down.
There we
Party
go.
on, Wayne.
Cheers, guys.